The audience was already buzzing with an unusual level of excitement as the warm-up comedian wrapped up. There was something in the air that morning, a mix of anticipation and tension, the kind that made crew members whisper behind clipboards and producers walk a little faster between camera setups. Steve Harvey was in the building, and whenever Steve Harvey appeared anywhere, things tended to get loud, funny, unpredictable, or all three at once. Joy Behar, however, walked into the studio with a storm cloud practically sitting on her shoulder. She had her cards clutched in her hand, eyes narrowed as she reread the questions she had planned. She rarely rehearsed lines, preferring spontaneity, but today she was rehearsing them like a lawyer preparing for trial. Every few seconds she huffed, dropped the stack of cards onto the table, shuffled them, picked them up again, and muttered something under her breath. Sarah glanced at Sunny with that look she gave whenever Joy was in one of her moods, part caution, part amusement, part silent plea not to get dragged into the crossfire. "Morning, Joy," Whoopi said, settling into her chair. Joy didn't look up. "Is it? We'll see." Sunny raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" Joy let out a short, humorless laugh. "Steve Harvey's been on every talk show this month lecturing women about relationships. So yeah, I'm just thrilled." Sarah tried to joke. "Come on, Steve's fun, he's all big energy and suits." Joy shot her a look that could melt stone. Big energy doesn't equal substance. Producers waved frantically to get everyone in place as the countdown began. Joy forced a smile for the cameras, but the tightness in her shoulders didn't ease. The audience cheered as the theme music faded, and Whoopi did the intro in her pleasant, controlled tone. "Please welcome the hilarious, the legendary, the everywhere at once Steve Harvey." Steve walked out radiating charisma, waving with that trademark grin. The audience erupted. He pointed at a couple of fans, made a joke about someone's sign, and the place was eating from his hand within seconds. He shook hands with each host. When he got to Joy, she gave him a stiff smile and a quick nod. He noticed. Everyone noticed. Well, Steve said as he sat down. "Y'all are looking like a panel of angels this morning." Sarah giggled. Sunny smiled. Joy stared. Whoopi quickly jumped in before Joy could. "We're so glad you're here, Steve. You've got a lot going on, new shows, new projects." Steve nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, I'm blessed. It's been a crazy ride." Sunny asked about his charity initiatives, which got a warm response. Sarah asked about his morning routine, which had the audience howling. Steve was in his element, telling stories with comedic timing so sharp it could slice glass. Then Joy leaned forward. "So Steve," she said, tapping her cards, "you've been giving a lot of relationship advice lately. Some people say too much." The tone was unmistakable. Sarah tensed. Whoopi glanced at the producers. The audience murmured. Steve raised an eyebrow. "Well, I've been doing that for a long time, Joy. Ain't nothing new. Folks ask me for advice, I give it." Joy shrugged. "But do you think someone with your colorful relationship history is really in a position to tell women how to live their lives?" The words hit the table like a dropped weight. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Steve gave a slow, measured smile. "Ah, here we go. You woke up wanna fight today, didn't you?" Laughter rippled through the audience, but Joy didn't laugh. "I woke up wanting clarity," she snapped. Steve leaned back. "Clarity, or conflict?" Joy set her cards down. "I think the public has the right to question someone who's had multiple marriages about why they feel qualified to teach women how to behave." Steve blinked. Then he leaned in. "Joy, I talk about lessons I learned from my mistakes. If anything, I know exactly what not to do." Joy shot back. "Yet you still talk about what women should and shouldn't do in relationships." Steve's voice dropped to that deep, serious tone that made audiences go still. "I don't tell women what to do. I offer advice based on what I've lived through. If folks want to listen, they do. If they don't, they don't. But I do not disrespect women." Joy crossed her arms. "Some would disagree." Steve's eyes narrowed. "Some like who?" Joy opened her mouth, but no name came out. The pause was heavy, and Steve seized it. "See, Joy, that's what I'm talking about. You throw in shade with no specifics. That's not journalism, that's just pokin' the bear." Joy bristled. "I'm not poking a bear. I'm pointing out facts." Steve held her gaze, unblinking. "No, you're stirring up mess because it makes good TV." The audience reacted, loudly. Joy's face flushed a dangerous shade of red. "You don't get to tell me what I'm doing," she snapped. Steve leaned forward, hands clasped. "Joy, you came out the gate with shots. I came here in peace. You tryin' to make a moment. Joy slammed her palm on the table, making Sunny jolt. I don't need to make a moment. I ask real questions. Steve didn't flinch. No, you ask loaded questions. Joy glared at him, and you give rehearsed answers. Steve shook his head. Nah, I give honest ones, but you don't wanna hear the truth unless it fits your script. Joy stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly across the floor. The audience gasped. Steve watched her, eyebrows raised in disbelief. You know what, she said, voice shaking with fury. I'm not doing this dance with you. Not today. Steve spread his arms wide. Dance? Joy, you started the music. The audience roared. Joy's fists clenched. She pointed at him, shaking with rage. I'm tired of people like you coming on this show thinking you can talk down to me. The commercial break had barely begun when chaos erupted behind the scenes. Joy Behar stormed through the narrow backstage hallway, her heels striking the floor like hammer blows. Makeup artists and crew members scrambled out of her path, sensing the nuclear heat radiating from her. One poor intern tried to hand her a bottle of water, only for Joy to snap, not now. And keep marching. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to move, to get away from the cameras, away from Steve Harvey, away from the humiliation she felt boiling under her skin. Back on stage, the atmosphere was no less tense. Steve Harvey remained seated at the table, his hands folded, jaw tight but his expression steady. The audience murmured in shock. Sarah looked pale. Sunny was whispering to a producer who'd rushed over with a headset practically glued to their ear. Whoopi sat silently, blinking in disbelief as the countdown to return from break ticked away. No one had prepared for this. Joy had walked off before, but she'd never walked off like this, mid-argument, mid-sentence, on the verge of tears mixed with fury. 10 seconds. A stage manager called. Steve exhaled slowly, adjusting his suit jacket. Lord, he muttered under his breath. This is something else. Whoopi shot him a sharp look. We're live in a second. Try not to pour gasoline on the fire. Steve nodded, but his eyes said he wasn't taking blame for what had just happened. The show snapped back to air, the theme music fading as Whoopi attempted to salvage something, anything, out of the chaos. Welcome back, she said, with the energy of someone trying to hold a collapsing building with her bare hands. As you saw before the break, things got a little heated. The audience laughed uneasily. Steve leaned toward his mic. Whoopi, if I could just. But Sarah jumped in before he could finish. Maybe we should just acknowledge that emotions were running high. This is live TV, tensions happen, strong personalities collide. Steve raised a hand. Sarah, I appreciate that, but I need to speak on this. Sunny flinched. Whoopi closed her eyes. The audience collectively leaned forward. Steve cleared his throat and sat upright, every inch a public figure trying to maintain dignity amid disaster. I came here, he began, in good faith, to talk about my projects, my work, my story. And I ain't gonna sit here and be made into some villain because someone came at me sideways. The audience murmured, louder this time. Whoopi intervened quickly. Steve, Joy took issue with something. And she had every right to. Sunny added carefully, but maybe the delivery wasn't the best. Steve lifted his chin. I didn't disrespect Joy, but I'm not gonna sit and get poked over and over. Sarah added softly, it was definitely a moment that escalated. Steve shrugged. She escalated. I responded. The tension was so thick it felt like another physical presence on the set. And then the unexpected happened. Joy reappeared. She marched back onto the stage, no longer in heels, just flats, like she had kicked the heels off somewhere backstage. Her face was flushed, her hair slightly disheveled, eyes burning with the kind of intensity that made every person in the studio straighten in their seat. The audience gasped. Joy, Whoopi began, but Joy wasn't looking at her. She was staring directly at Steve. You want to talk, she said sharply. Let's talk. Steve stared at her in mild disbelief and irritation. Joy, I already said. No, she cut him off. You said your piece. Now it's my turn. Sarah whispered, oh boy. Joy stepped closer to the table, gripping the edge as she leaned in. You think I tried to create a moment for TV? You think I asked questions to get attention? After 26 years on this show, Steve, I don't need attention. Steve didn't flinch. I never said you needed it. I said you wanted it. Joy's nostrils flared. I wanted honesty. And you sat there acting like you're above the criticism you dish out. Steve gestured broadly. I'm not above anything. But you gotta know the difference between holding someone accountable and coming after someone personally. That wasn't personal. Joy shot back. Steve met her eyes. It felt personal. Joy hesitated, just enough for the cameras to catch. The audience gave a soft, collective, "Oh." Steve continued.